Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I've got 5 big questions for the 2024 NBA Finals. I just dropped a full prediction and preview video, so if you want to hear my overall really in-depth thoughts on the series, you can go ahead and check that out. Today, I just want to talk about some of the most interesting aspects and what, like I said in that video, feels like could be a classic final series between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. So, thought it'd be fun to go ahead and do it with a 5-question format. They vary between a variety of things. You'll see as we get into them. But for the moment, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos, and let me know down below in the comments what you think the answer to these questions is. Kicking it off, question number 1, is this Luka Doncic's crowning moment? Coming into the season, especially after the Nuggets title run last year, Nikola Jokic was pretty widely accepted as the best player in the world, and that's been the prevailing thought pretty much all throughout the season, with him winning his 3rd MVP in 3 years. He has made a great case to be that guy, and even if the Mavericks go out there and win the finals and Luka Doncic is the finals MVP, like it seems he will be if they win the series, there are still going to be a lot of people, I would imagine, that lean Nikola Jokic. I know there are some people who think it's Giannis, or some might tell you like a Joel Embiid, but Luka Doncic, over the course of these playoffs and this season as a whole, because he had a ridiculous regular season as well, has started to inch closer and closer to that conversation. And it feels like if he goes out there and has a historic finals, puts up some of the numbers we've seen him put up before in the playoffs, especially against this Boston team that has Jrue Holiday and Derrick White and Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, like this is a juggernaut Celtics team on both ends, but especially trying to stop Luka, they're going to have a lot of attention if he can go out there and put up some insane numbers, really just anything similar to what we've seen him do all throughout his playoff career, and the Mavericks win this series, say convincingly, or even just win it in general. There's going to be even more conversation about Luka potentially being the best player in the world. And it's always felt like as Luka began his career and was dominating from day one, we were watching the birth of an all-time great player. If he goes out there and wins this finals MVP, grabs a ring already early in his career with plenty of potential to go on and win more, we may just not be witnessing the birth of an all-time great. We may be witnessing the rise of a future top 10, top 5, maybe even a little bit higher player in NBA history. I don't think that's out of the question for Luka Doncic, and he doesn't have to win this ring to eventually get to those all-time conversations because he's already done a lot individually and there's still plenty of career left, but getting it done against this Boston team in his first finals, becoming the first 5 seed to ever win a championship, would be a massive boost to that resume very early on, with again still so much room for him to improve. My second question is for the superstar on the other side in Jayson Tatum, and that is, can he go ahead and erase the 2022 NBA Finals? The Celtics, of course, have only been back to the finals one time in the Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown era, and that was in 2022, where they did end up losing to the Golden State Warriors in 6 games. Steph Curry won finals MVP. There's no shame in a young team losing their first finals appearance, especially going up against the best dynasty of the modern era, the only one we've seen in the NBA in a really long time, with Steph Curry, one of the best players to ever do it. There is no shame in losing that series, but on a more individual basis, it was one to forget for Jayson Tatum. He went out there and put up just 21.5 points per game, turned the ball over almost 4 times a night, and shot just 36% from the field. He did hit his threes 45% from deep. He was rebounding, he was playmaking, but overall not the series you need from your superstar if you want to go ahead and win, and was one of the biggest reasons, if not the biggest reason, why the Celtics didn't end up as champions in 2022. Now he's got a chance to go ahead and erase all of that, because if he can lead the Celtics to a finals victory, which would be their 18th banner, the most in NBA history, win finals MVP, and at least equal, if not outduel Luka Doncic, that would go a long way to him silencing all the doubters. People saying they're not expecting a lot from Jayson Tatum in this series because he's not a real superstar. They don't think he can be the best player on a championship team. They're expecting the Celtics to choke because he's at the helm and they don't think he can do it. This is Tatum's chance to not only erase the 2022 finals and prove he can be that guy for a title team, but also start to vault himself into all-time conversations, because Tatum has a ridiculous resume at this age. The only thing he really doesn't have at this point is a championship, and I guess an MVP, which maybe he could win at some point, but the ring is the big thing. So if Tatum can go out there and dominate, especially against this great Mavericks defense and a team that a lot of people are picking to beat this Celtics squad, that would be huge for him. Sticking with the stars, my third question is, what are we going to see from Kristaps Porzingis? I talked in my series preview video a lot about KP and this direct narrative, because he was great this entire year. Last season with the Wizards was arguably the best year of his career. He came here into Boston and brought a lot of the same stuff: the rim protection, the shot blocking, the versatility, the floor spacing, amazing three-point shooting for a guy his size, post-up ability, his ability to be a connective playmaker out of the high post, on the short roll, elbow, whatever you want to use Kristaps Porzingis for, he is a weapon in a lot of ways, especially when surrounded by all this talent. but has not played very much in the playoffs. He was good at the beginning of it when they faced the Miami Heat, but got hurt pretty quickly and has not shown up since. This is a bright stage for him to be thrust back into the lineup, but they do need him. If they want to win the series against a really good Dallas squad, they're going to need Kristaps Porzingis to provide a lot of what he did in the regular season and at the beginning of those playoffs. The same things that I talked about with the shot making, the three-point stretchability, the defensive versatility against this potent Mavericks offense. They need all of it, and if KP looks hobbled, isn't really able to hold his own on either end, say they're hunting him defensively because he's not as quick as he usually is, or on the offensive end, just doesn't really have his shot or his legs under him, that suddenly becomes a big concern for Boston. And then do you think about maybe benching him or limiting his minutes? Do you think about just trying to push through it and hoping he finds his rhythm? Because you do need him to beat the Mavericks, or at least I believe you do. It's a big question mark. Now, this could all be erased if he just comes out there and looks amazing like he did all regular season. And, I mean, maybe this was a good thing in the end that he got to just rest for like a month and a half, didn't have to really put in that much effort. He got to chill. There is also a negative spin to it, like he is coming off an injury. If they need him to play a lot of minutes, especially against a physically demanding team in Dallas, there is a chance of re-injury. How much do you have to worry about his minutes limit? There are a lot of question marks surrounding him. He and his health in particular are probably the biggest X factor in this series for me. We'll see what he brings to the table. My fourth question is, which of the second options will be better, Jaylen Brown or Kyrie Irving? Because I think that could be a big swing factor for this series. I know Luka Doncic is going to be amazing. I'm hoping and believe that Jayson Tatum will be pretty good as well. What do we see from those two? Now, Kyrie's been to the finals before and obviously was incredible, especially in that 2016 win against the Golden State Warriors. He hit one of the biggest shots in NBA history. I would imagine Kyrie is pretty good in this series, but they might need him to be a little bit more score heavy than he's been at other points of this playoff run, because while Kyrie, has been really good, he's only putting up 22.8 points per game, 5.2 assists, and 4 rebounds. It hasn't been dominant statistical output, and that's mainly because he's pretty passive in first halves, and second halves he really starts to turn it up, and then down the stretch of games in the clutch, you can count on Kyrie for a variety of buckets. But against this really good Boston defense, if they're slowing Luka down even a little bit, if the role players aren't really hooping, you might need Kyrie to be more aggressive. Can he level up the way that he has at some points here in the playoffs? Well, there have been other games where it hasn't always been the prettiest, even though the Mavericks usually get the job done. That's the beauty of that backcourt. If one of them's struggling, the other one usually steps up. But I do think against this really good Boston team, they'll need both firing on all cylinders. So Kyrie Irving, they need a lot from him, as well as for Jaylen Brown, especially if Jayson Tatum, again, isn't playing his best. Can Jay be stepped up? We saw him do it in the Eastern Conference Finals, where he did win ECF MVP. It was extremely impressive. That might have been the best playoff series, in fact, I think it was, of his entire career when you take into account the stage and just how dominant he was. We talk about the clutch shot over Pascal Siakam in the corner, the overall great output, the efficiency, the defense. Jaylen Brown, I think, is playing the best basketball of his career throughout this season, and throughout the playoffs so far, he's been great as well statistically. 25, 6, and 3, 1.1 steals. He's shooting over 50% from the field. The three-point shot is around 37%, which is fine. Maybe you would want it up a little bit, but that's perfectly fine for Jaylen Brown. He's been great. The defense, too, has been phenomenal. It has been this entire season. So if Jaylen Brown can step up and be firmly the third best player in this series, and Jayson Tatum is kind of close to Luka, or even if he's not that close, if they can be a solidified 2 and 3 best players in this series, that could be big for Boston, because the role players then will start to tumble in their favor as well as we get more down that list. We'll see what happens, but these two second options are incredibly interesting. They play very different roles for their teams, yet both sides are going to need them to step up in this series. And finally, my fifth question for this matchup is, what's the fallout like if Boston loses this series? For Dallas, nothing probably changes, or at least not that much. Like, they'll just run this team back, have another year of experience, of growth together. You've still got Luka Doncic, you've still got Kyrie Irving under contract, Derrick Lively's young, you've still got PJ, Gafford, all the guys that kind of got you to this point. Now, there is going to be a concern because Derrick Jones Jr. might walk. He's probably going to ask for a lot of money relative to the contract he's making now. After a great season, he's earned that bag. So are they able to bring him back? Does maybe like just Josh Green step into that lineup? How do you, I guess, bolster the supporting cast a little bit? Because if you lose this series, you want to improve at least some. They definitely have an interesting offseason if it doesn't go their way, but I think there's more question marks surrounding Boston if they end up losing the finals, because they dominated all regular season, they dominated the Eastern Conference playoffs. If they go ahead and face Dallas, which is their first like real challenge, and they lose, do they start to question, what do we do about this team? Because they do have everybody under contract for at least next year. You've got Jrue Holiday on an extension, Kristaps Porzingis for a couple more years. Tatum is going to have to be extended here pretty soon, and he's obviously going to make a ton of money. You've got Jaylen Brown long-term. Derrick White is under contract for next season. Do you start to have some talks with him about an extension, or do you just kind of wait and see? Horford's coming off the bench. He's up there in age. Do you find another backup big? What do you do with this team? Do you start to question if Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum can be the duo to lead you to a championship? Do you question if you should consider moving off of some of the other guys? I would imagine there are some of those conversations being had. I'm not saying the Celtics are going to blow it up immediately if they end up losing, but I think it's very interesting to think about how the offseason might unfold in the coming months after that for Boston if they don't end up winning this series, because this feels like they've got a great shot to go ahead and do so. The Mavericks are amazing. They're a really good team. I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics do lose, but the way they dominated the NBA basically this entire season, if they fall short again, where do you go from here? And is it a drastic change, maybe to one of your leading stars in Tatum or Brown? Especially because with the money going up and the new CBA coming into effect, that salary situation is going to get really hindering for the Celtics. They kind of have a more limited window with this group, at least in particular, than people realize. So they've got to go ahead and capitalize. And if they don't, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, with all that being said, those are 5 questions I wanted to go ahead and ask about the finals. Again, let me know what you think the answers are to those questions down below in the comments, as well as always, who you have winning this series, how many games, who's your finals MVP, if you want my full thoughts on that. Again, you can go check out that prediction video I dropped a couple of days ago. There will be a recap video coming out for every game of the finals here on the channel, so make sure to stay tuned for that, which means you should go ahead and subscribe if you enjoy this content. You should leave a like if you enjoyed the video too. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. And yeah, I appreciate you watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.